Alright, this morning I started baby November's quilt. I started by giving my fat quarter a little press on the heat press just to flatten it out, and then cut it into 6-inch strips. I'm using my same equilateral triangle ruler that I used for my hexagon quilt, lining it up at the 5.5-inch mark and giving a cut. So the strips are 6 inches, the triangles have 5.5-inch sides. I did that with a total of 11 fabrics. Each fat quarter made 12 triangles, which I had quite a few extra. This fat quarter bundle is also from Morgan Kelly Quilts, but it's sold out. You should really follow her though, because she puts out some really great bundles and I love them. Yeah, so this is baby November. I am zooming through this quilt because I'm trying to get it done before the post office closes on Monday. So here I am laying it out. I had a total of 11 fabrics, and that's how wide I wanted my strips were. So I would pull out a set of one of each fabric and lay it out into a row and then keep going like that. And it went great. It was a little difficult because there weren't enough like medium volume fabrics, but I figured it out. We worked out. It probably isn't perfect, and what drives you crazy probably is different from what drives me crazy, but I did fix this one because those 3 light ones all together was too much. And so there she is, and I'm about to start sewing her together. And I do definitely have enough leftover pieces to fill in the sides, don't worry. Alright, I finished cutting out and laying out baby November's quilt. I switched my machine back to a normal 1/4-inch foot instead of a walking foot, and then I started sewing them in 2 sets of 2. The last triangle quilt I made, I took off a piece, put it back, took it off, put it back, and everyone made fun of me. And you know what? I'm doing it again because I messed up so many triangles on this one, and I don't mind getting up. So yeah, so this is just me sewing all of the triangles into sets of 2, working in rows. So I'm looking at the row and taking 2 triangles next to each other and sewing them together. This is the slowest part because you have the most pieces to sew, but you feel really accomplished when it's done. It looks like this, and you hope you didn't mess any up. Alright, after I got all of the triangles sewn into sets of 2, I started sewing them into the complete rows. So I was just I don't even know how to describe what I was doing, but I was just trying not to screw it up. I was sick of picking seams apart to fix it. So here I am, you just kind of line up the triangles. It makes a really weird shape when you do it. Triangles are very hard to explain in 1 minute. And then I went and cut some half triangles to fill in the edge pieces so that I wouldn't have a wonky quilt again like the hexagon quilt was, and sewed those onto the ends. And then I got my little numbered binder clips to number my rows, and now it's time to press. Alright, it is time to join those rows together to make the finished top. I am pinning where the 2 points meet, and then 1 more in the middle of the flat part. And I guess now is as good a time as any to tell you when I hit 50,000 followers on TikTok, I'm going to officially start a YouTube. And I'll do a better job of explaining this. And ready, drop. The lighting wasn't great on this, but look, I dressed up to match the quilt. And a little quilt swirl. I started out by pressing my seams flat for my rows. I discovered that if I use a piece of cardstock to kind of push the seam in the direction I want to go, it'll hold it down while I do my press. It would honestly be easier to just use a normal iron, but I'm stubborn and I like to use my heat press for these things. But the cardstock trick worked great. Then I went to my dining room table and got out my giant roll of batting that I got on Amazon. There's a link in my bio. And then I cut my backing fabric down to size. I like to use flannel on the back just so it's nice and soft. It looks like a snake print, but it's just triangles. I'll show you later. And then you just peel it back, spray it, push it down, peel it back, spray it, push it down, and then you do the same with the top. I am loving this quilt so much. It's going to be really hard to give it away, but it's a very close family friend that I'm giving it to. I've had some people ask how I keep my lines straight or how I line them up. And honestly, practice and muscle growth. But I start by moving my needle all the way to the far right side to get it as close to the left side of the seam. And then I'm taking my right side of my walking foot and lining it up with that left side of the seam. I use the needle down position so that when I lift the presser foot, the needle goes down and anchors the fabric in place so that when I'm fiddling with the fabric, it isn't sliding around at all. So when I get to the end, I cut the thread and go back up, and now I'm on the right side, so I move my needle all the way to the left and line up the left side of my walking foot. And then I just do the same thing, walk it all the way across, keeping that lined up. And honestly, build your muscles. That is really what has happened for me. It is so much less tiring to quilt now that I've been doing it every day. I just got a new tripod with ring light attached, so get ready for all of the angles. My last video I posted was about how I line up my walking foot and needle to get these lines straight. For this quilt, I quilted on the left and right side of every single seam, which was so many seams, but now just enjoy the time lapse of it all. All right, let's take binding step by step. I start by taking my big square ruler and squaring off the corners, and then I use my long rotary ruler to connect them. I cut 3-inch strips by the width of the fabric and put them right sides together on my machine. I made 5 strips total. And then I sewed them corner to corner, starting towards the middle, I guess. And then I flipped that last one over so it was right sides up, put the next one right side down so that the right sides were touching, and did the same thing end to end. And then you trim about a 1/4 inch off. I press those seams open, and then I press the whole long strip in half, and then I rolled it up to get ready to baste it to the quilt. Part 2 coming soon. Alright, so I'm taking my binding tape open side out and putting it against the edge of the quilt. I only use like one clip at a time on this. So then when I get to the corner, I turn with my needle down at a 45-degree angle and stitch it off the corner. Then I pull it against that diagonal seam and then push it back down to make kind of a square. This is really hard to explain in 1 minute, but I don't know, I just saw it on a couple people do it on a YouTube video, and I just kept doing that until I had to join the ends, which is my least favorite part, and I totally screwed it up. I marked where they met, and then I sewed them together, right sides together, and the bottom one was twisted, so then I had to pick it apart and do it again. So be careful joining your ends. And then once they were all joined, I kind of finger pressed the seams open and then just closed off that last little part. Alright, binding is almost done. I am clipping the binding around. I like these clips so much better than pins for binding. There's a link to these clips in my bio. But anyway, when I get to a corner, I pull the bottom part flat and fold over the top, and then hold that fold while I clip the bottom on, if that makes any sense. It makes a pretty nice miter. Your front will stay mitered from that diagonal stitch you made, and then I used the same wavy stitch. I really like it. I'm probably just gonna do that forever. It does make like a little wavy bit at the bottom, but I think it just adds a nice texture, and this is for a baby that likes to, you know, explore their world. I'm not entering it into a county fair. So I use that nice little wavy stitch. I did use a heavy duty needle for this part because it's very thick, and there you go.
It is so much easier not to do things than to do them. That you would do anything is totally remarkable. Percentage-wise, it is 100% easier not to do things than to do them. And so much fun not to do them, especially when you were supposed to do them. In terms of like instant relief, canceling plans is like heroin. It is an amazing